Hi, my name is Maddie Smith, and this is my presentation on cultural diversity in the classroom, talking about disabilities. I just want to state that this is for educational purposes only. So yeah, let's get started. We're going to start with a case study. So Guadalupe Lupe Gutierrez, a third grade teacher at Martin Luther King Elementary School, has been asked to see the principal, Erin Wilkerson, after the students leave. Dr. Wilkerson explains that the school is expanding its full inclusion program, in which special education children, including those with severe disabilities, are fully integrated into general education classrooms. Congruent with school district policy, King Elementary is enhancing its efforts to integrate special education students into general education settings. Gutierrez's classroom is one of 4 general education classrooms in which special education students will be placed in the next few weeks. She was told that what this will involve, Lupe, is 2 students with severe disabilities. One is a child with Down syndrome who has developmental disabilities. He has severe delays in the acquisition of cognitive, language, motor, and social skills, and he has some severe learning problems. And the other child has normal intelligence, but is non-ambulatory with limited speech and severe cerebral palsy. You will be assigned a full-time aide with a special education background. In addition, Bill Gregg, the inclusion specialist, will assist you with instructional plans and strategies. It is more important that you prepare your students and the parents so that a smooth transition can be made when these students come into your class in January, just 2.5 months from now. I'd like you and Bill to map out a plan of action and give it to me in 2 weeks. So we're going to keep this case study in the back of our minds while we go through this presentation, and then after this presentation, we will revisit the case study. We're going to explore some content for their plan of action, brainstorm some ideas for that. We'll reflect on the purpose of integrating special education students into general education and consider the effects of these changes on special education students and general education students with classroom environment and curriculum. So an overview of special education. The term consists of specialized programs, curricula, and instruction designed to address the needs of students with disabilities. In 1954, Brown v. Board of Education ruled that segregation violated equal educational opportunity, and while this case concerned racial injustice, the idea that all people have the right to a quality education carried further and can be applied to the special education program. Some history. We've got a timeline here. In 1966, federal funding for special education in public schools became a thing. 1973, the Rehabilitation Act ensured all programs with federal funding cannot deny benefits to disabled people of any kind. In 1975, Education for All Handicapped Children Act was passed, and this act is known as the IDEA Act today, which we're going to learn more about in our next slide. In 1982, students qualifying for special education must receive individualized instruction, and this was ruled in the Board of Education of Hendrick Hudson Central School District versus Rowley. And then in 2004, the No Child Left Behind Act, or now known as the Every Student Succeeds Act, with some revisions there in 2015. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or the IDEA Act as we mentioned in the slide before, states that disability is a natural part of the human experience and in no way diminishes the right of individuals to participate in or contribute to society. Improving educational results for children with disabilities is an essential element of our national policy of ensuring equality of opportunity, full participation, independent living, and economic self-sufficiency for individuals with disabilities. So, this Disability Act has 13 categories that the disabilities can fall into in order to qualify to meet the programs for schools and stuff. So we've got autism, deafness, emotional disturbance, hearing impairment, intellectual disability, multiple disabilities, orthopedic impairment, other health impairment, specific learning disability, speech or language disability, traumatic brain injury, and visual impairment, including blindness. These are just the baseline categories for qualification into the IDEAS Act. Today, the official Office for Civil Rights enforces the rights of IDEA-eligible students and ensures that public education institutions follow laws prohibiting discrimination against students with special needs. We're going to take a look at some historical stereotypes in special education and their effects on the treatment of these people in society. So first up, we've got people with disabilities are sick and in constant pain. People with disabilities are normal in the sense that they occasionally get sick and feel pain, but this is not a constant. It's often a general misunderstanding, can be very harmful to people who have disabilities because they are just trying to live their lives like we are. People with disabilities are wheelchair bound. There are many people with disabilities that you cannot see on the surface, and this is why education in regards to various types of disabilities is crucial. So, informing the general education students and just society in general that not all people with disabilities have physical disabilities. There are a lot of mental disabilities, lots of emotional disabilities, and things like blindness or deafness that cannot be easily so spotted. People with disabilities are helpless and dependent. This one can be very dangerous. Those with disabilities live a happy and fulfilling life. This stereotype was generally used to raise money for charities back in the early 90s. This stereotype can be super harmful because we as a education system really want to make sure that disabled people are set up with an equitable opportunity to be independent and go about the world and have accommodations to do that by themselves without having to depend on able-bodied people. And then last one we got here is people with disabilities are to be feared. Society used to claim that those with mental disabilities lack the sense of moral ground that would restrain them from hurting others. This was only ever said to exclude them from participation in society. So this is another super dangerous one here. We have set a almost fear and definitely exclusion of people with disabilities from the general public. We're going to look at some current perceptions, beliefs, and stereotypes in special education. So in education today, perceptions towards disabled people have significantly changed since back then with the stereotypes we've looked at. We are now ensuring all schools are readily available and accessible to those with disabilities as to those without. So, for disabled people, we want to make sure they have an equal opportunity to get a quality education as the rest of us. It has been brought to the world's attention that we need to be ready to serve children with disabilities as equally as others. And many education systems today are putting forth the thought of emphasizing the individual and their abilities instead of their disabilities. So we want to emphasize their uniqueness and what awesome traits they can bring to the table rather than focusing on a specific part of them that does not define them as a person. Many countries are moving forward with laws to ensure those with disabilities are getting equal opportunities. Some notable mentions are Kenya with the Persons with Disabilities Act, Australia with the Disability Discrimination Act, and international development, the Salamanca Statement. We're going to take a look at some disability in media. So disabled people are often underrepresented in media. So there is a percentage of population who is considered disabled, and a significantly lower percentage of that is represented in media, especially visual media. When there is representation, however, it is often negatively portrayed or inaccurately displayed, and that can be very harmful. Many instances in media have treated people with disabilities as objects of pity, charity, or portrayed as ultra-inspiring characters, accomplishing merely living with their condition. So it's serving as a inspiration to able-bodied people when these people are just living their normal lives. They treat these disabilities as something that is such an accomplishment to conquer when these people don't have any other way that they are able to live. Negative portrayals and bias in media can be very harmful because media can deeply influence public opinion and establish societal norms. So with more representation in media, we would be able to more normalize disability. The more that even the general public see it, not only will disabled people feel more representation and seen in media, the rest of us in the general education community will understand that these people have real issues and they need to have an equal and equitable experience to us. Some things that teachers should know with special education. Teachers should have a general knowledge of what special education is and how it is implemented in a classroom setting. They should have an understanding of the history of special education and how it has evolved over time. They should also have a knowledge of some common terms and programs that are specific to use in special education settings. Some examples include accommodation, modification, mainstreaming, individual education programs, and behavior intervention plans. We are going to take a look back at our case study. So here's a little refresher for you in case you forgot. Lupe will be given 2 students of the special education, one with Down syndrome and developmental disabilities, and one who is non-ambulatory with limited speech and severe cerebral palsy. She will also be given assistance. She'll be assigned a full-time aide with experience in special education and assistance from an inclusion specialist. We're going to take a moment just to brainstorm some ideas from our case study looking back. So we're going to ask ourselves, what should be included in the plan of action for Lupe's class? So these are some examples of content that you could include, or also just like curriculum ideas. And then we're also going to take a look at why is integrating special education students into general education classrooms beneficial. We're going to look at both sides here. So in what ways is this beneficial for the special education students, and in other what ways is it beneficial to the general education classrooms? And then finally, we're going to examine in what ways the classroom environment will differ and in what ways the curriculum might differ. So I'll give you a few minutes to think here. All right. I especially want us to look at the benefits of integrating special education students into general education classrooms. So this is beneficial for both sides, right? So the special education students will be able to kind of immerse themselves into a more normal kind of societal, like it'll reflect what they will experience in the real world, in the real classroom, because they're not just going to be sheltered with other people with disabilities all the time. They're going to have to go out into the real world and experience general activities and stuff. And then the general education students will be able to experience what it is like to see someone that's different than you and see how they are able to succeed and what makes them different. And it's just great for diversity. These are my resources that I used for this presentation. And thank you guys so much for listening and learning with me today. Yeah, thank you so much.